Hello, and welcome back to the Excellency Esports Fight League Week 7 matchup between Degenerate Esports Reformed and Florida State Esports. My name is Fennec, joined on the desk today by the Mac. It's the return thereof, as it were. We are into the game number 2 draft here. Degenerate Esports Reformed now on the blue side with the first ban, Camille.
Yeah, and they're taking away that Camille, which does sort of immediately get them away from that Galio pick, which was a little threatening, even though that they weren't able to necessarily get that Wombo combo in the previous game.
I'll be very surprised if this is actually an Anivia ban. I don't think Crimbale looked extremely great on it, and I don't think that was a pick that really was impressive for them, but they banned it anyway. I gotta be real with you, Chief. I'm not a huge fan of this Anivia ban here.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it myself, but I can understand why, because she does make it a lot more difficult to take these fights than a lot of other mages, just because her wall can be so terrain changing and change the way that you have to actually take these fights. I think the Lilia ban makes a lot of sense. You're banning a very high priority, high tempo jungler, and then the Thresh ban, we know that the Thresh is going to be very high priority for these two teams specifically. As well as it leading into certain AD carry combos that can be very strong.
Yeah, and the Nico potentially being banned away again for Degenerates Reformed. So the only difference in the ban is Camille ban first rotation instead of Udyr here for Degenerates, as Anivia and Thresh are all new bans for Florida State. They're going to be forced to ban away the Udyr here, just because it's Udyr, right? And if they don't, I expect Degenerates to first pick this one. But they're thinking about it. They might actually go ahead and ban out something else here. Victor. This is... Okay, Seraphine and Udyr, we're both up.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
To match the Udyr, as well as the Seraphine pick being mid and support, being a flexible pick.
I think you cut out for part of that. Not gonna lie.
Am I back?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just saying that I think the Seraphine pick is a little bit stronger than the Udyr to take first, because it's flexible, as well as there being some junglers that can match Udyr fairly well after he's received a couple of nerfs.
Gotcha. Udyr, though, being picked up by Florida State Esports, as he's the other power pick at the moment. With the Seraphine pickup as well, as you mentioned with the flex, you generally, I think she's been playing a lot more support recently than mid or APC, just because of how strong Moonstone is on her and how weak that is as a mid lane item. You see these double Moonstones not really coming to fruition. Galio, getting picked up by Florida State Esports. I want to see the support. I don't want to see it mid. I don't think it looked all that great last game from Flame Shadow. I think he needs to be on something a little bit different to effectively come in, and it's the Skarner once again for Degenerates Reformed.
Yeah, and I think that the issue with the Galio this time round is that you don't have that Hecarim to combo with, and you aren't going to have a Camille to combo with, so you have less things already at your disposal that are going to help you get that free ultimate into the backline. The Xayah being picked up makes it very safe into Udyr and Galio, makes it much more harder for them to get onto you, and the Skarner obviously just a pick into the Udyr, as well as giving you that pick threat of your own.
Yeah, with the Samira being hovered here, though, if it actually ends up getting picked up, I think Florida State Esports has resigned themselves to not play through bot lane this game, as Samira really isn't the strongest of laners. I know on release she definitely was, but those days are long behind us. We're into Samira now basically being an AD bruiser that plays from the bottom lane. Kind of fringe of the meta right now, hasn't really been picked up all that much, but much like Camille, even though her laning phase is, okay, it's not super strong, once she gets to that late game, she becomes nigh on unkillable and very, very difficult to deal with in a team fight. That said, Florida State Esports banning the Kales, the Malphite immediately gets banned away from Degenerates.
Yeah, and the Malphite, not only is it a ban just because of how simple he is to play in the top lane, but also obviously that follow-up for the Galio. And I certainly agree with what you said about Samira. She's gotten a couple early game nerfs, but once she gets that 2-3 item spike is where she can really turn on and turn these team fights around for her team.
Meantime, though, bans coming out once again from Florida State. gonna be the Orianna ban, getting away some of that team fight and pick potential. Skarner is very good at ball delivery service. Still don't know where the Seraphine's going, but I think it's safe to assume it's going into the support, just generally how bans work. We're going to see a top lane picked up most likely here from Florida State Esports, as they need to hold this Galio flex for as long as they can. However, they might bait themselves into a bad matchup here if Degenerates Reformed have anything to say about it.
Yeah, and I think one thing to point out about that Orianna ban is it's really important because you're taking away a facilitator from that Skarner, so he doesn't have as much. And we see them take the support here, which means the Galio is going mid lane.
I don't like this. Blind Galio is so easily punishable, and unlike last game where you had a double, support, right? This time around, or a double mid support flex. This time around, it's just very easy to find a laner good against them. Any long range mage with enough poke can deal with Galio just fine. Either Swain or Seraphine. I think Swain is not great in the solo lanes right now, so I assume this is going to be the Seraphine mid now, with the Swain in that supportive role. With the GP top side, not something that's easily counterpickable, especially with the Camille off the table. See what Florida State Esports decides to take top side, but you kind of mentioned during the break, right, towards the end of the last game, who are the threats for Degenerates Reformed. It's Fox Zero, it's Hardstuck Brother. We saw Fox Zero on the Xayah once again. We see Hardstuck Brother on a GP, who is a comfort pick as far as weak side top lanes go, and he did very well on that Kale last time around. Kled going to be picked up, though. Strong side for Pandemonium here. We know where that Udyr is going to be ganking first thing in the morning, but, I mean, Kled's very feast or famine.
Yeah, and I think if the Kled does get ahead, it starts to become a very big issue for Degenerates, simply because he provides so much utility with his ultimate for the Udyr and the Alistar to actually get in there and engage, let alone the fact that he would be very strong on his own if he does get ahead. But the Seraphine here provides a lot of safety and utility for the Skarner specifically, to be able to move around and look for these picks. So we aren't going to be seeing that Thresh, so we won't be seeing any Lantern combos alongside the Skarner. But definitely he does have a little bit of a facilitator in that Seraphine, since her W does give both shielding, healing, and movement speed.
Yeah, and kind of on top of that as well, like, you take a look at the damage profiles for both these teams, you just have very strong miss damage from Degenerates Reformed, while it's very strong AD from Florida State Esports. Galio damage falls off the cliff at 25 minutes, and it's going to be very easy to itemize against that. Skarner going to go ahead and build a Thornmail, probably second item. We're going to expect some Grievous Wounds on the Swain and Xayah as well, and I don't know. I'm just not sure about Florida State's draft at all here.
Yeah, it's definitely fairly dependent on the Samira not falling behind and the Kled getting ahead. Both of those are kind of important, which is going to be pulling the Udyr into various places, because if Skarner is able to get one of these early ganks off that we did see that the Degenerates were trying to make, even though they have a Skarner, they were looking for these early plays. Once he hits that level 6, it becomes very, very difficult for the Samira to try and evade these ganks, because, as we know, her E was changed, so she no longer gets that dash through allies. So she doesn't really have a safe way to get out if that Skarner does come in and press that R key on the Samira.
We are finally into the in-game draft, so we'll see if it's going to be Swain solo lane or Seraphine. I think we're assuming it's the Seraphine solo, as Swain mid kind of sucks right now. As a Swain mid player, I cry every time. Look, I'm an Anivia one trick. When I don't have an AVF, I play Swain. That's just how it is. All right, I gotta get the birds. Speaking of birds, in the bot lane, probably going to be Xayah Swain, both birds in their own right. But with that going on at the moment, as you mentioned, the Skarner Seraphine combo is very strong. I think they also have a very nasty team fight with the GP Swain and Xayah and Seraphine, right? So they have a good mix of pick potential and team fight. They have great split push off the gangplank. Much like last game, I expect them to go for that 1-4. If it's Swain mid, you can also go for a 1-3-1 as well. Meanwhile, though, you have this very strong 1-3-1 coming out from Florida State Esports if they can actually get to that, but it's very difficult to do so. We need to see this Kled get ahead early. Oh, we already said that, but it's just good to reiterate. Get the Kled ahead.
Yes, for how important it is, it's very good to reiterate. And one thing about the bot lane here is that since Samira has been nerfed a couple times in the early game, people naturally think that like Samira Alistar is a very strong lane just because of how they combo together. But the issue is that Alistar is just a melee minion with a knockup at level 1, and Samira has had this nerfed early game, so it's not as strong. So they can actually definitely get punished by this Swain Zaya bot lane we're going to be seeing because of how strong and how much damage they can actually pump out in those early couple levels.
They also have a massive range advantage as well. Just Samira, one of the lowest range AD carries out there, and Alistar, obviously a melee champion in his own right, whereas Swain, one of the highest range spells or control mages in the game as far as spells go. Obviously, you know, the the Visions of Empire notwithstanding, right? But Nevermove, just a very, very long range spell. And on top of that, you have quite a bit of range with the Blade Caller on the Zaya. So this can be very, very difficult to deal with. It's a very strong combo as well, because you can get the Nevermove passive as well as not just off Nevermove, but also on that Blade Caller as well. So this is going to be very, very tough lane for this Mirror Alistar. I want to see stacks on the Swain. I want to see 2 stacks a minute at least. All that matters is stacks.
Needs to be stacking up that HP. Nothing else matters in this game. Let's only look at the Swain stacks. I think it's going to be very important and vital to see if Degenerates can win this game. It's entirely on the Swain stacks.
Yeah,
nothing
exactly.
Else.
Oh, 5 HP at a time. Just win the game.
Exactly.
5 HP at a time. Unless you take Grasp of the Undying, in which case it's closer to 10 HP at a time. Not 80. Not in the bot lane though. Grasp was the top lane Rin of choice for a while, although he's no longer played top. Once again, Sag, as it were, though, are just about loaded or ready to go for the spectator delay. So we're gonna take a quick break. Don't go there. We'll be right back with more of the Excellency Light League. Welcome one, welcome all, and welcome back to the Excellency Lightweight Week 7 matchup between Degenerates Reformed and Florida State Esports. My name is Fennec, joined on the desk today by Mac, and we are getting ready to go with game number 2 of this best of 2 set. Degenerate Esports need to find the win here in order to guarantee themselves that playoff berth. Need this and one more win tonight. Florida State Esports looking to finish out their season strong. They've already clinched a playoff berth, but it would be really, really nice for them. Mac, what do we make of this early game? What are we expecting to see?
So, I think we're going to be expecting to see the Udyr having a bit more priority in terms of where he's able to move around the map, because he's going to be clearing a little bit faster than the Skarner, as well as Skarner not looking to gank pre-6. However, seeing how they played last game, Skarner might actually look around this top lane, because we want Kled to get ahead. As we've been saying, it's really focused on this Udyr and Kled matchup. Not matchup, but duo to get this Kled ahead, because if they're unsuccessful and Samira doesn't get absurdly ahead just off misplay, then their comp really lacks consistent damage output.
Indeed, can't set it better myself. However, late game, I think Samira does outscale the Xayah, and they do have more damage than this. But you still have to do with the GP scaling late. As well as the fact that your damage profile is kind of screwed, because you're all AD outside of Gallia, who does no damage late, so you can tech against that pretty. Meantime, though, level 1. Where's the buff Gromp start? Probably a full clear from the Scar. And as Udyr probably does the same.
Yeah, and we see since Skarner started on the top side, he's actually going to be pathing towards this bot lane, which will be his strong side, but it means that GP will be vulnerable if Pandemonium sets up his waves in any kind of way that is successful and isn't just shoving as soon as the Udyr shows up, unless they do want to look for a dive.
I don't think you can really dive that early with the Udyr gank setup. Yes, you have the ability to trade off aggro well with Scarl passive. With Skarl. But same time, it can be really, really tough to trade aggro when we're in these lower ranks, right? Understanding, this is how you actually do it. This is when we can go for the dive and start trading aggro versus when you don't want to actually do that, right? Meantime, though, Kaz, getting the better full clear over Hotsmort's 12, as you do on Udyr, but with both junglers going for the full clear, gonna be a back early. We see Flute Loops actually having a little bit of trouble here. Actually dies. First blood goes over. Foxer gets a bunch of damage with a Blade Caller. Rooster to the S tier, but do too much with that as he doesn't have the available flash used by Dump Truck to secure that kill, as well as Flute Loop.
Yeah, and Flute Loop's just getting a little bit too close there against the Alistar. Normally a champion that you see as she engages.
Here comes Hotsmores. They're getting the damage in, but the flash is already coming in. Blade Caller finds the route down onto Dump Truck. This should be a 1-for-1, but Rooster trade back on Hotsmore. Just fine. Dashes out of the way.
And while Alistar did get both of those kills, it's actually very valuable if he goes in for the mobility boots here, as he does. So now he can actually move around the map and try and impact this Kled lane and this Gallia lane, if at all possible. And having the Xayah plus Swain fall behind early is not what you want to be seeing if you are a big fan of Degenerates.
Indeed. Xayah Swain, as we kind of mentioned, can be a very oppressive lane, but you can't let that fall much. Yes, you're going to have a stronger mid-game smite than Samira, regardless of how lane goes. Head out of lane. But at the same time, very, very difficult, and Crimvale has to get out of the way. Off the shielded Durand, Dump Truck, as you mentioned, roaming up with those. Well, but end up falling here. Pulverize down. Crim trying to dodge out of the way. Can't get a double kill, though. Was flooded up. Well, Crim and Dump Truck picks up the kill. Scumbag not giving it over to Flame Shadow, though.
Yeah, I think at this point you no longer need the kills on Alistar at all, so you just should be trying to get them over. I think actually the most important thing that might get overlooked was that Udyr shoved that wave in to actually make sure that Seraphine would get denied minions, even though she took so long to kill. Actually very important small thing that will likely get overlooked if you're not paying very close attention to that minimap.
As in the meantime, level ahead of Hotsmore. Take a look at the gold lead. It's about 1,000 gold lead at the moment, but that's entirely on the Alistar. So, in effect, if he's not able to get those kills to the carry, it's going to be very, very difficult to actually translate that into an advantage. But with this lane priority from the bot side coming in, be able to grab the first dragon with the Udyr. Advanced. Cloud Dragon.
Yeah, and because it's a Cloud Dragon, it's actually very good because it insinuates the fact that we might actually get a very
Loot loops
important
around,
dragon.
gets the pull back in with another move. Headbutt. Oh, I guess Hotspot. A better trouble here. Comes the Pulverize into the taunt. Dump Truck taken down, though, in the meantime. It's 1-for-1 as the shutdown goes over to the Xayah, but it's going to be traded back as Pandemonium comes in with a charge. So looking for the follow-up kills. Knock up, double kill for Flame Shadow as Udyr picks up one as well. 4-4-0 in favor of Florida State Esports. That's how you want to start out a game.
Yeah, and that huge team fight win is really not only on the back of Pandemonium teleporting down and using his ultimate, but also the great effectiveness that Dump Truck had there. He was able to boot the Skarner back into his own team and then pulverize him afterwards. And then Cryptvale just had no support there after the Skarner had died, so he was just alone in a group of 4. And did fall, even though he was able to pick up the kill onto Dump Truck. It was just a huge fight win in favor of Florida, and it's actually really impactful here because they need to get these kind of early advantages, and having that kill on your Galio and your Samira means that you do have a newfound magic damage threat in your Galio, as well as the Samira getting boosted up really hard early to scale into that late game threat that we know she can be.
Yeah, Flame Shadow looking for that Hextech Rocket Belt, as perhaps might have a better game on Galio as he is now ahead. About 700 gold at the moment. Samira, though, still even with the Xayah in the mean. Occasionally happens. Kill, and assist. But X-Flash, Headbutt, Pulverize. That's a knock up on a Floop. Oops, tries to get out of the way, but Rooster's already dashed in. Blade Collar, unable to get the root as Floops gets taken down. Rooster up a Conqueror. Out on Crimvale. Get out in the mid lane. Rooster comes in. Ultimate, but fortunately can't really get too much damage. Can't really dive tower, but here comes Dump Truck, and now Fox Zero tries to cut out of the way. Summoner Heal used, and Rooster kind of 2 shower shots gets away with the double kill.
Yeah, and that was just really well played by Rooster. Oh, as we see the gameplay call, it's going to clear away.
They're fine.
They might die.
Maybe. Pandemonium. Hard sucker. Meanwhile, so gonna miss. Here comes the Seraphine. Ultimate, the Encore. Quite a bit, as well as the stun coming in from Hot S'mores. Flame Shadow down to 200 health, missing the flash over the wall, and Crimvale should be able to trade this one back. Shut down over to the Seraphine. That's 350 gold, 450 gold, excuse me, as Rooster gets executed by the turret down bot side.
Yeah, Gangplank teleported down after that ultimate, and we saw that Rooster decided to do his best to execute instead of giving the kill gold over to Hardstuck, and that did end up working out for him.
Pandemonium.
Getting some plates. One key thing to note is that on that bot lane play, it was just really well played by Rooster and Dump Truck. Rooster was actually able to deny 7 or 8 different feathers from the Xayah to get pulled back with the Samira W, which was actually very impactful in that trade to be able to get that first kill. And then another combo by Dump Truck was able to give them the follow-up kill.
So, got a 3,000 gold lead at 9 minutes. This is what Florida State wanted last game. This time around, they're getting it. Bot lane, which is their scaling lane as well. Very, very. But Hot S'mores down. Have the Impale. Headbutt Pulverized. Here comes the Flash, though. On to Rooster. Forcing the Flash. Here comes the Impale, though. And the Blade Collar picks up the kill. Swain with the kill. Credit as Dump Truck's down to 100 health. Fox Zero ends up getting that one. 700 gold going over. Sorry, 600 gold, excuse me, going over to Flute. Oops, feels very nice. Even though he's the support, it is a Swain, and he does very well with early gold.
Yeah, and right there it was just Dump Truck going a little bit too aggressive there without actually having any vision in bot lane. We see that they do have 2 pink wards, but they're a little far north to be going in that aggressively when you don't have any vision of where the Skarner's been in recent times.
Pandemonium pops the charge, but what cost?
It doesn't actually get anything off that. That's too meaningful for the Kled, but yeah, they were able to burn the flash off the Samira and still get the in range for that Skarner ult. They got the shutdown as well as extra kill. which is actually really impactful and swings the gold lead from around 3,000 to only 1.5.
Pandemonium. Building in towards that Gore Drinker is the font side. This should be enough for 2 plates at least, actually. Oh, this should be tower. Camera didn't want to show it. A nice pre-14 first tower. Their second of the series for Florida State. Also getting priority towards this Infernal Dragon, second of the game if grab it. Comes the Fnatic Death Brush. They're spotted out though. Shadow in trouble though. Justice wins 4 here. Away. Lots more. Down.
Yeah, and both mid laners are chunked in this little skirmish that's going to happen over this dragon.
Forward, but the inside track's been given over to Degenerates or King. Pandemonium does not have ultimate, does not have ATP. Here comes the Galio with the ult, but Flute Loops has already popped the ult himself as well as the stopwatch. Picks up 1 kill in the meantime. Flame Shadow goes down, and now Rooster in trouble, suppressed up by Hot S'mores. 3 for 1, and Kaz is on the side, might be looking for Hot S'mores in the meantime. It's going to be a very difficult pack with Crimbale and Fox Zero zoning out for the Skarner.
Yeah, and they do end up securing this dragon. That was extremely well coordinated.
Pandemonium, why? You can't afford to do that one, Chief. Losing Skarl. Pandemonium taken down. Hot S'mores with the kill. Fox Zero trying to trade out onto Kaz. He's running away as fast as he can. As the Vision of Empire is going to be a swing and a miss. Kaz should be able to recall as Hot S'mores. On down onto Dump Truck. Now Kaz looking for Hot S'mores. Hot S'mores in trouble, stunned up by the bear stance, but Kaz can't really do too much without the follow-up of Dump Truck.
Yeah, and that whole fight, as he dies to slugs, that whole fight was really on the back of Flute and Hardstuck communicating really well with that Gangplank ult, plus the Swain ult, as well as into that Zanya's, which denied so much of the engage that Florida actually had. And it just meant that they had no follow-up after that because they had used all their engage on a Zanya's target.
Yeah, the Demonic Ascension plus Stopwatch combo from Flute Loops on this Swain is really, really powerful. This is why a lot of the times you'll see commencing Stopwatch on Swain, although not this time, he just bought that. But now going into the Leandri's Torment, second item, Zony's Hourglass, is going to be a very, very strong threat from the spot lane. Double threat coming out. And Swain does more with gold than Alistar. Even though Alistar is up 700 gold, he's a tank to Swain. He's just pure damage.
Yeah, and at this point in the game, the gold is pretty much dead even. The biggest difference is there's about a 500 gold gap in the top lane in favor of the Gangplank, and about a 600 or 700 gold gap in the support in favor of the Alistar, but everyone else is very close, within 200 or 300 gold of each other, and that's why it's evening out to be a very close gold gap.
And the Pandemonium goes ahead and actually dodges out the Impale with the charge. Here, trying to dodge out the skill shots, finally able to get away from the Encore, but Flute Loops already has too much damage. Rooster trying to get to the level 6, finally does. Root lands from Crimbale, but before he's able to take down Flute Loops, but Crimbale still ends up with a kill. Here comes Xayah, gets some feathers down, finds the Blade Collar as the mid laner falls. Here comes Galio with the ultimate, and there is the kill on to the Xayah. Taunt lands now onto the Skarner. Hot S'mores in trouble, taken down by the Rocket Belt, and it's a 4 for 1 in favor of Florida State Esports. Stuck, brother?
Yeah.
No, he can't afford to do that one. Has to flash out of the way. Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of an overstay on the side of Degenerates. I mean, they look for that early pick, and then Samira just lasts so long because she gets her ultimate off, and then they're able to just turn it because she does so much damage, and then eventually the team follow-up with the Galio ult is there, and then that shuts down the Xayah as well. And overall, it was just a very back-and-forth play in the beginning while Samira was alive at the very start. And then it sort of turned the tides as the numbers advantage was clear in favor of Florida.
We take a look towards the Mythics, though. Chemtank completed on both junglers. Luden's Tempest on the... Not Luden's... That's Luden's Tempest. I forget if that's the ornament or not. It's Luden's Tempest on the Seraphine. Kraken Slayer on the Maya with the Immortal Shield Bow for Rooster. Truck gets chunked out a bit, but he should be. Galio with the X-Tech Rocket Belt and the Prowler's Call, actually. Not Prowler's Call, Stride Breaker on Pandemonium.
Yeah, so we can see that these melee champions on the side of Florida really need help with that engage as we look for a dive.
Arsuck Brother, good fall here. They're critting the aggro decently well on Pandemonium. Not that kill. Not much you can do against that. As came in, there was Canyon Wave, but now Pandemonium's in trouble. He's getting collapsed on by Crimbale, Hot S'mores, and Flute Loops. Now slowed up by the Seraphine, but here comes the engage from the Alistar. The charm lands onto 3 members as the Shed goes back into the backline. Excuse me, that's the Skarner. The flash comes in from Rooster, trying to get the damage in with the ultimate, but unfortunately can't get enough kills as Flute Loops goes down to Kaz. The health bars are very low, though. Crimbale and Fox Zero are around, but they can't find the chase.
Yeah, and we saw a fairly successful dive, but then he just had to walk through the wrong side after taking that dive. He obviously is walking towards the enemy team's base, and they were able to follow up very quickly to get that trade kill. And then in the ensuing fight, the Swain falls to the Samira because of her ultimate and her very high DPS, and then she ends up living because of her shield bow. It's actually quite in favor of the Florida team because all of this happening right before the dragon spawning, and they still have their Galio ult is like the most key thing that happens because all the a lot of ults are being taken away, but right now there's only Gangplank and Zai ult. However, Degenerates are here first.
Here comes the Galio ult. Here's the entrance. Gets knocked up on a 1, but it's Hot S'mores. That's the tank. Gangplank in as well with the Cannon Barrage as the stun lands down onto the back line. Dive, but Kaz taken out very low. Rooster in trouble in the front line as well as Pandemonium finally gets hard stuck. Brother, Rooster gets traded off in the fight. Dump Truck now in with the headbutt pulverized, but it's going to be taken down very low by Crimbale as Pandemonium is about to loot Skarl. 1-for-1, 80 carry for top laner. Here comes Hot S'mores, though. Does not have the impale for a couple of seconds. Stun lands on a Dump Truck. Taken out of the way, but Dump Truck should end up falling, but takes it back with the Aftershock proc 2-for-2 in the pit.
And S'mores falling there is actually very impactful. If they want to look for it, they could look for the contest. It looks like Udyr is just going to be farming his camps and creating that excess tempo lead after the Skarner fell, but it does mean that Dragon is going to be going over to the side of Degenerates.
With that dragon going over, we see first towards the Ocean Soul. Dragons to 1. Or it falls as well top side.
Yeah, and we see Kled will be collecting that wave and likely starting to pressure that other turret up there as well, seeing as how it only has around 300 HP. Taking a quick little look at the gold, we can see that the top lane gold gap has actually swapped to being around 600 gold in favor of Kled now instead of in favor of Gangplank. There's now a little bit of a gold gap in the jungle, where there's around 1,000 gold in favor of Udyr, while it used to be only around 200 or 300. Mid lane is fairly even, around a 200 gold lead for Seraphine. The 80 carries are within 100 gold of each other, actually extremely close. And then there's around a 500 gold lead for the Alistar, which is where we're accruing this around 2,000 gold lead for Florida, as we see it engage onto Seraphine.
Meanwhile, top side, though, Pandemonium. Trouble. Well, flashing out of the way. On to help. Stopwatch actually completed into Zonia's first item for the Swain, but we see the charge top side. Hard stuck Brother taking down a half health, but he's fine. And now re-engaging onto Kaz, but here comes that ball pulverized on a 3, but he's already out of the way with Featherstorm into the Blade Collar. Rooster takes down Crimbale, but not before he's taken down himself with Zaya. And now Pandemonium in trouble, caught out by the Never move. 3-4-1 in favor of Degenerates Esports reformed.
Yeah,
Galio exploding in the bot side in the meantime, though.
Florida is going a little bit too hard there. I mean, they only had realistically 3 people in the area after Udyr got ulted. He just sprinted away, so it was then a 3v5 in the area, and they just go too far, and they bite the bullet for it.
Indeed, they do. Wayne, actually, not even going for a mythic right now. Just holding on to the Lost Chapter as he's got a early Oblivion Orb. You do when you're up against a Mira. Dang it. Samira and Nicolette.
Yeah, and we do see that they actually already have 4 different sources of that healing reduction into the Samira, which is why she hasn't been able to actually make a huge impact in these fights, because she just keeps dying before she's able to stack up her passive and get that ultimate off.
Yeah, and even with the Inferno trigger, it's just so difficult when you've got 4 different forms of Grievous to actually heal up off of that. We've been seeing her impact in fights less and less. A very smart building coming in from Degenerates Reform. As and without any source of Grievous right now is the DP, who is still working towards the Mythic as he went for the Essence Reaver start. And QSS tax taken by Rooster in the meantime.
Yeah, and that QSS tax just further sets him behind the path of the compared to Xayah. I mean, Xayah obviously teching into 800 gold for that Executioners, but teching 1400 gold into that QSS means it's actually lopsided even further, and there's actually a 600 gold gap there just off the extra itemization that you won't be seeing in the average build for the 3-item power spike.
Meantime, though, Dragon spawning in about a minute 30. This should be the next flashpoint. Might be sole point for Degenerates Reform. They've got a very nasty team fight right now, even though they're down about 1,000 gold. They seem to be in control of the tempo of the game, and that's very important. As this should be when Galio is strongest, but he hasn't been making that much of an impact. At time to make it. That's the one.
Yeah, and we know that Dragon's spawning in about a minute, so Galio's trying to move up to that top wave, get that top wave shoved in, maybe recall and teleport in, getting something like his Banshee's Veil that he's somewhat close to in terms of gold value. He's only a couple hundred off.
Meantime, though, mid tower finally going to fall in favor of Degenerates. Now 2 turrets, 3 across the bot lane. Not yet fallen, but soon to fall to Hardstuck Brother.
Yeah, and they're able to pick up these outer turrets a little bit before the Ocean Drake spawns, which is actually fairly impactful if they're able to get resets off and get that little bit of extra global gold that they had in their pockets and actually buy these items that we need. As we see Xayah finishing her Kraken Slayer, we see the Seraphine finishes Morello, we see Skarner finishing Thornmail, and we see Gangplank finishing Shieldbow. So they have all these great item spikes that are just coming through because of all this global gold they've been able to accrue in the last couple of minutes.
Meanwhile, the Rift Herald going to be spawned mid lane, so it's going to create some sort of minor threat for Florida State, but it's taken out. Dragon has spawned. They have the inside track, and they're starting up, but lots more Hardstuck Brother on in for the entrance. By Crimvale, and there goes the charm! Smite steal away by Hotsmores as he flashes out, trying to come back in as the Galio comes up with a heroic entrance. Only a knock up on a Tubus. Flute Loops finally gets a kill on a Rooster without any follow-up damage. This is just going to be the fight for Degenerates Reformed. It's 2 for 1 thus far as the support has finally fallen. Crimvale ends up getting the kill on the dump truck as Pandemonium trying to get trades back on Hotsmores, but he's taken down in the meantime. 4 for 1. This should be the ace very soon. A Flame Shadow down about 100 health. Shutdown goes over to Hardstuck Brother. That's 5 for 1 in favor of Degenerates Reformed. They are looking in playoff shape tonight. I know we've already said this, but if they win this, they just need 1 more win to guarantee playoffs. And if Merciless lose any of their next 2 games, they are out if Degenerates Reformed wins this as well.
Yeah, and you can see how difficult it is for this team comp to fight with their 4 melee champions. So if they're not the ones that are hard engaging, it makes it very difficult, as well as that huge charm to start off and get that dragon steal. It didn't matter that Skarner was getting pressured down, because that Gangplank ult in the back when they were doing dragon actually chunked the Samira down to around half health before the fight even started, which made it very difficult for them to fight, since they're just four melee champions, and then their Samira, who's short range but is a ranged champion, was already at half HP, so they didn't really have a way of dealing that extra damage before the fight started compared to what was dealt to them.
And with that fight going the way the Degenerates Reformed, they have a solid gold lead now. 3,000 gold ahead. Set up around this Baron. Matching the Galio finally in that sideline is GP's actually kind of been on the opposite side of the map, making opposite-sided threats up against the main split pusher. For Florida State Esports, I should say the secondary split pusher. But in matching the Kled, you lead the Galio to freely split pushes. Crimvale can't really match that. Hardstuck Brother now in trouble, as Wayne gets 5 HP at least in recompense.
Yeah, just pushing up a little bit too far, doesn't really have the vision, tries to clear out that pink ward and gets punished for it.
More importantly, though, Flute Loops gets 5 more HP.
Exactly.
Lands, though, in the meantime, and Dump Truck ends up getting taken down, but that is the use of the Impale as Pandemonium comes in with a charge. Galio in with a heroic entrance, unable to get any sort of knockups. The Flute Lips already has the combo in. Reaster finds Crimvale in the meantime, but he's taken down. Triple cover to Zaya, and now Flame Shadow follow up Pandemonium. Force Flash out of the way. That's a quadra kill for Fox Zero. So much damage with the feathers of the Blade Caller, and Hotspur is looking for the stun, unable to find it as Pandemonium gets his mount 4 for 2 in favor of Degenerates Reformed. This should be the Baron.
Yeah, and as we saw there, they weren't able to get on Fox Zero. The Galio wasn't getting close enough. The Udyr wasn't able to get on top of him. The Kled wasn't able to get on top of him. The Allen started falling before, and they just had nothing that was able to get on the Zaya, and the Zaya was just free hitting that entire time and just shredded through the tanks.
With this win, they will be in control of their own fates. One more win would guarantee them a playoff berth. They are looking forward to that.
5,000 gold lead, plus having the Baron, they can now take all of the standing gold on the map in that last inner turret and top lane, as well as start crushing around these inhib turrets and the base of Florida.
And remember, Degenerates Reformed was a roster who at the beginning of the season forfeited their first match due to roster problems. Like, Degenerates Reformed has had a very rocky start to the season, but I think a lot of people have rated them as sleeper. Flute Loops has been excellent for them in that support role. Hasn't really shown super brightly tonight. Mostly that's been on the back of Fox Zero and Heartstuck Brother. But this game, I mean, Fox Zero once again playing out of his mind on the Zaya pick. Really showing his stuff.
Yeah, and we see that just in that 80 carry position, there is a 3,000 gold lead. So even though the total gold lead is only about 5,500, 6,000, half of that is in your 80 carry, which is where all of the threat comes from on the Samira team, which means if your Samira is behind that much, you're not going to be able to do that much consistent damage with your current team comp.
And the rest is distributed between the Galio, or not the Galio, excuse me, the Swain and the Seraphine, which is very, very nice. I mean, Swain now on the Landry's power spike as well. So, has so much potential. Charge comes in from the Kled, but he finds Hotspurs with the knock-up, and Fox Zero's already out with the Featherstorm Flute Loops into the backline with the ult stopwatch combos. Fox Zero gets a Blade Collar, goes legendary off of it. Double kill for the Zaya as Kaz ends up running for his life. Hotspurs picking up the kill onto the Samira in the meantime as Pandemonium tries to kite out of the way. Might be able to get his lovable mount back. The kite's back towards the base, but it's a 3 for 0 in favor of Degenerates Reformed. With a minute left on the Baron, they might look for the end here.
Yeah, with the Baron and they had that minion wave at the ready, they can actually definitely look for this end and try and take this two-game series as a 2-0.
With this win, they're 1 away from playoffs. Pandemonium finally falling here, this time to Flute Loops. They're on to the Nexus, and Degenerates Reformed are 1 game away. 1 game away from guaranteeing themselves a playoff spot.
Yeah, and I think the biggest impact there was Swain getting those stacks of HP. It was by far the most important thing that happened in that game. But no, for sure, Fox Zero on the Zaya. We saw that Florida in many of the fights in both games 1 and 2 were unable to get onto him, and he just did so much damage in both of these games, topping the damage charts again by a fair margin.
Yeah, just amazing play coming out from Fox Zero. Both games this series. I mean, I think we're both in agreement. He's probably the series MVP here for Degenerate Esports Reformed. We're going to try to get him in for an interview in a second or so. But at the meantime, like, what are your thoughts about this series overall for Degenerate Esports Reformed?
I think it's a little bit eye-opening for people that might have been sleeping on them, as well as it gives them a lot of confidence moving into that next matchup to try and eke out a 1-1 or even a 2-0 in that next matchup to try and clinch their way, securing their own destiny to make that playoff run. And it really just shows how strong of an 80 carry that they have in Fox Zero.
Yeah, just, I mean, this Zaya performance, so strong. Both games. I mean, Heartstuck Brother on the kill definitely worked very well in game number 1 as well. Let's talk about Hotspurs, though. I think definitely the understated member of the team here had a very, very quiet but strong game both times, hitting these impales time and time again. We saw him show up with better, I think, gank presence in game number 1 than the Hecarim. And this time around, despite falling behind early, just came back and constantly impactful with these impales.
Yeah, the Skarner applying extra pick threat and sort of the engaged denial, because if you're able to use that impale on a champion like Udyr, there's not much that the Udyr can actually do about it. And after he finishes the impale, the only thing that he can do is just try and run away, and then you're removing that threat from your Xayah and actually helping Fox Zero a lot. And one thing that we definitely saw from Florida was them trying to engage time and time again onto Flute Loops, who just would pop his ultimate and then pop the Zanyas, heal up all the HP that he had lost, and then just be in the back line as a threat for Rooster. And it really just put a burden on the AD carry in these team fights, and it made it very difficult for him to try and play.
That said, that we're going to take a quick break as we get ready for that interview. We'll be Fox Zero in a minute, so don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome one, welcome all, and welcome back to the Excellency Light League Week 7 match between Degenerate Esports and Florida State Esports. My name is Finnick, joined by Mac, and we are joined by Fox Zero. Degenerate Esports reformed, excuse me about that, AD carry and MVP for that match. How are you feeling after that 2-0 victory?
I feel like a bird is off my shoulders, if you know what I mean, you know?
I mean, you had the Anivia game 1. I don't know what you're talking about with birds.
I mean, true, we did have Anivia Xayah, then we had the Xayah Swain. It's really just it's kind of a bird kind of day, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And after getting those leads, I mean, you did sort of fly away with those victories. It was fairly impressive.
One could say I did soar my way into one step closer into playoffs, but
the bad puns are typically my job, I would like to say. But generally, you can't hear me make the bad puns because I'm normally just streaming while Zephyr and Obubby cast. Regardless, getting into the interview questions here. Game number 1, you guys had this kind of late game scaling comp. Ended up actually getting a lead bot side up against what is ostensibly a strong side lane of this Tristana and Morgana. How did you guys navigate that lane, and what were your feelings kind of going into that mid game as things were very, very even for you guys?
Well, I knew we had the better scaling comp, and when I was doing my research on Florida State, I saw that they like to play like hard dive comps. So it really just like came to me. I was like, hey, Xayah's pretty good against that. So I locked in Xayah, and then obviously the Morgana is good against the Thresh, but like you can only black shield one person, and reacting to black shield the E on Xayah is pretty hard. And Tristana normally jumps in, right? So I felt like, oh, well, Xayah has she should have a pretty good matchup in this lane. So, you know, I just kind of took advantage of that. And then we kept good communication for where the jungler was, so I wouldn't, die under tower or die to ganks and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys played that very well. And, you know, going out of that mid game, you guys were dead even, which honestly, I mean, off of your lead bot side, right? And they had the gold on, I think, the 2 tanks, right? Fox Zero, you got a question?
I have a question.
I'm asking, do you have a question?
Do I have a question?
Oh, not Fox Zero. I meant Mac. Wow. I am completely and totally just... Look, all right. I'm normally producing these casts. I don't cast for Excellency all that much at the moment. I cast other places. Forgive me, Mac. You got a question here.
So I certainly have a question, and that's with the Xayah. You saw that they definitely had these hard engage comps. How did you feel about it when they were diving on in the first game specifically? You're Nivea, and then in the second game you had that Skarner peel and that Seraphine peel to try and help you out, and they were diving onto the Swain. Did you really feel safe because they were diving onto these other carries, or did you feel threatened to burn that ult? Maybe a little willy-nilly just because it's a little scary when there's an Alistar and a Galio and they're just like sprinting at you with the Kled ult speed.
I kind of felt left out, like why is my mid laner getting hard targeted when like I'm the one who's doing all the damage? So, it kind of felt like kind of sad, watching everyone burn all their cooldowns on everyone else but me. And then I just kind of pressed W, Q, and E and killed everyone,
Yeah, you right-clicked very well. It was very impressive, as always, with 80 carries. When they're able to click that mouse very quickly and efficiently, they can make it look really good.
Hey, there's attack move too. You're forgetting about the A key.
And target champions only as well. Yeah, exactly.
Wait, whoa. You don't attack move for CS? Shame.
True, it's just an 80 carry diff at the end of the day.
Learn to Orbok, you peasant. I'm sorry. Joking aside, going kind of back to that game too, right? You guys ended up falling behind quite a bit early in that bottom lane to that Samira Alistar. Despite having the ostensibly stronger lane with the Xayah Swain, however, you guys came back. Kind of like, what was your thought process? You guys were behind going into the mid game. How did you guys recover from that?
Well, I have to admit that the Alistar play to flash QW Swain under tower, like that was pretty well played. Like Samira and Alistar definitely did a very good job in that lane, but I knew that once I get executioners and we actually get grievous wounds, then Samira can't just face tank like all the damage in her ultimate, Like at the end of the day, Samira is kind of not a champion. So I knew that if we itemize well, we 100% have the better team fight. They were kind of a one damage threat team comp again with like pretty much just a Samira and a bunch of like, tanks and bruisers to stand around her. So I knew that if we just itemize well, actually grouped as a team, didn't grief our fights, that we could make the comeback happen.
Mac?
Yeah, certainly. I definitely think that their team composition was a little bit one-sided, where they have 4 melee champions, mostly physical damage, all surrounding that Samira. And one thing that we did point out in the cast is that you guys very early on had 4 sources of the anti-heal with everyone except Gangplank, and I think that it definitely impacted those fights, made it very hard for her to play. So I have an extra question, which is, what are your thoughts on them taking that Kled into the Gangplank? Were you guys really prepared for that pick, or was it unexpected?
I mean, I wasn't like surprised. I was like, when I banned the Malphite, I was like, okay, I want to at least like try to get rid of as much like instant press R hard engage as possible. So when they locked in Kled, I saw the reasoning for it. Absolutely. Was I surprised? I wouldn't go that far. I was just like, I don't know, between surprised and not surprised. I was expecting it, but not expecting it, I guess. I was expecting hard engage, I'll say that, but I wasn't expecting the champion.
All right, and moving on tonight, you guys are 1 win away from guaranteeing your playoff spot, as actually Merciless rescheduled the first series of the night. If they lose 1 game, you guys are also guaranteed playoffs at the moment. So you guys will be up against the number 2 team in the league, of Divine Ascension, Obsidian. What are your thoughts going into that series tonight?
It's definitely going to be a hard series. I'm not going into it expecting, a face roll or anything like that, unless they give us Seraphine, because Seraphine's a broken champion. But other than that, I'm expecting some good games, and to play hard and make playoffs, I guess, or die trying.
Well said, Fox Zero, and thank you for coming on the broadcast tonight. And that is it for game number 1, and actually for Max Time on the Desk. Photography Raptor is going to come on for set number 2. But before then, we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. See you after the break.